The shadow that destroys your relationships. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same toxic patterns in every relationship? Why you fall for people who hurt you? Or why you sabotage love when it gets too real? Carl Jung discovered something profound about human psychology that explains this destructive cycle. And it's hiding in your unconscious mind right now. What you're about to learn isn't taught in relationship advice books or therapy sessions. This is the dark psychology of love that Jung called the shadow, the rejected parts of yourself that secretly control your romantic choices. Most people spend their entire lives unconsciously repeating the same relationship disasters because they don't know this shadow exists. But here's what's fascinating. Once you understand your shadow, you don't just heal your relationships, you transform them into something extraordinary. You stop attracting drama and start magnetizing genuine love. You break generational patterns and create the partnership you've always dreamed of. Today, I'm going to reveal the 4 shadow archetypes that destroy relationships, show you exactly how they operate in your love life, and give you Jung's proven method to integrate them. This isn't about positive thinking or communication techniques. This is about excavating the unconscious forces that have been sabotaging your happiness. If you're ready to finally understand why your relationships follow the same painful patterns, hit that like button right now. This information will change how you see love forever, and I need to know you're serious about transformation before we dive deeper into Jung's most controversial discoveries about romantic psychology. Carl Jung made a startling discovery while treating patients in his psychiatric practice. He noticed that people weren't just attracted to partners who complemented them. They were magnetically drawn to people who embodied their own rejected qualities. He called this phenomenon shadow projection, and it explains why smart people fall for manipulators, why independent people attract clingy partners, and why kind people end up with narcissists. Jung realized that every human being has a shadow, the collection of traits, emotions, and desires we've rejected about ourselves since childhood. These aren't just negative qualities. They're parts of our authentic self that we learned were unacceptable through family conditioning, social pressure, or traumatic experiences. Here's the psychological trap. Whatever we reject in ourselves, we unconsciously seek in others. If you were taught that anger is bad, you'll be attracted to explosive partners. If you learned that vulnerability is weakness, you'll fall for emotionally unavailable people. Your shadow literally chooses your romantic partners, and you have no conscious control over it. Jung discovered that this projection serves a purpose. It's your psyche's attempt to reclaim its lost wholeness. But instead of integrating these shadow qualities within yourself, you try to experience them through your partner. This creates an addictive dynamic where you need them to feel complete, which Jung identified as the root of codependency. The most disturbing part? Your shadow doesn't just attract certain people, it actively sabotages healthy relationships. When someone treats you well, your shadow whispers that you don't deserve it. When love feels stable, your shadow creates chaos to restore familiar dysfunction. It's like having an internal saboteur programmed to destroy your happiness. Jung identified 4 primary shadow archetypes that operate in romantic relationships, and everyone has a dominant one that controls their love patterns. Understanding your archetype is like having a psychological GPS. Suddenly, all your relationship choices make perfect sense. What I'm about to reveal will probably make you uncomfortable because you're going to recognize yourself in these descriptions. But don't stop watching. This recognition is the first step to freedom. Stay with me because the healing method I'll share later will transform whichever archetype resonates with you. The victim shadow is the first archetype. If this is your dominant shadow, you unconsciously believe that love requires suffering. You're attracted to partners who neglect, betray, or emotionally abuse you because your shadow equates intensity with intimacy. You mistake drama for passion and find healthy relationships boring. Your shadow creates stories about how you're always the innocent party, which prevents you from seeing your role in choosing unavailable partners. The rescuer shadow is driven by the need to save others. You're attracted to broken people because fixing them makes you feel valuable and needed. Your shadow convinces you that your worth depends on how much you sacrifice for others. You enable destructive behavior while telling yourself you're being loving, and you feel threatened when your partner starts healing because it challenges your identity as the savior. The rebel shadow is terrified of intimacy, but disguises this fear as independence. You're attracted to commitment-phobic partners because they mirror your own avoidance patterns. Your shadow creates conflict whenever relationships get too close, sabotaging connection through criticism, withdrawal, or infidelity. You mistake emotional distance for strength and confuse solitude with freedom. The perfectionist shadow sets impossible standards that no real person can meet. You're attracted to idealized partners who seem flawless, then become disillusioned when they reveal human imperfections. Let's dive deeper into the victim shadow because it's the most common and destructive archetype in modern relationships. If you have a victim shadow, you've unconsciously organized your entire romantic life around the belief that love hurts, and partners who treat you well feel wrong to your nervous system. This shadow usually develops in childhood when love was conditional, inconsistent, or paired with emotional pain. Maybe you had a parent who withheld affection as punishment, or you witnessed a volatile relationship that taught you drama equals passion. Your young mind concluded that suffering is the price of love, and this program still runs your adult relationships. The victim shadow has a particular genius for finding partners who will recreate your childhood wounds. You're not consciously choosing abusive people. Your shadow is unconsciously screening for specific red flags that feel like home to your traumatized nervous system. The emotional unavailability, the hot and cold behavior, the criticism disguised as care, it all feels familiar and therefore right. Here's something that might shock you. If you have a victim shadow, you actually have tremendous power in your relationships, but you use it to maintain your victim position. Keep watching because I'm about to reveal how you unconsciously manipulate situations to confirm your belief that you're powerless, and more importantly, how to redirect this power constructively. The victim shadow's secret power is emotional manipulation through suffering. You unconsciously communicate that your partner's behavior is causing you pain, which makes them feel guilty and responsible for your emotional state. This creates a twisted form of control where your weakness becomes your weapon. You get attention, sympathy, and a sense of moral superiority through your pain. But here's the trap. The more you identify with victimhood, the more you attract perpetrators. The rescuer shadow might seem like the good archetype, but it's actually one of the most manipulative and destructive patterns in relationships. If you're a rescuer, you've built your entire identity around being needed, and you unconsciously choose broken partners to maintain your role as the savior. Rescuers are attracted to addiction, mental illness, financial instability, and emotional damage in potential partners. Your shadow convinces you that you're being compassionate, but you're actually feeding off others' dysfunction because it makes you feel superior and indispensable. You mistake codependency for love and enabling for support. The rescuer shadow develops when you learned early that your value comes from what you do for others, not who you are. Maybe you were the parentified child who took care of everyone's emotions, or you grew up believing that love means sacrifice. Your identity became so entangled with helping others that you can't imagine being valued just for existing. If you're A rescuer, what I'm about to say might trigger your defenses, but please stay with me. You're not as selfless as you think you are, and your helping often makes situations worse. The insight I'm sharing next will explain why your relationships feel like endless work, and why your partners often resent your efforts to fix them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Rescuers need their partners to stay broken. When your partner starts healing and becoming independent, you feel threatened because your role becomes obsolete. Your shadow will unconsciously sabotage their progress through worry, criticism disguised as concern, or creating new crises that require your intervention. The rescuer shadow also attracts partners who resist help because your unconscious mind knows that someone who actually wants to change would eventually outgrow their need for you. The rebel shadow is perhaps the most sophisticated of all the archetypes because it disguises fear of intimacy as strength and independence. If you have a rebel shadow, you're unconsciously terrified of being consumed by love, so you create distance. Through conflict, criticism, or emotional unavailability, rebels are attracted to partners who are also commitment phobic or emotionally unavailable because it creates a safe dynamic where no one gets too close. You mistake intensity for intimacy and confuse the adrenaline of uncertainty with genuine passion. Your relationships feel like a constant push-pull dance where someone is always chasing and someone is always running. The rebel shadow usually develops when early attachment experiences taught you that closeness leads to engulfment or abandonment. Maybe you had a controlling parent who violated your boundaries, or you experienced painful rejection that convinced you that vulnerability equals danger. Your shadow learned to associate intimacy with loss of self. Here's what rebels don't realize. Your fear of losing yourself in love actually guarantees that you'll never experience true love at all. But there's a way to maintain your independence while still creating deep intimacy. Stay with me, because the integration technique I'll share works especially well for rebel shadows. The rebel shadow's defense mechanism is creating conflict whenever relationships feel too peaceful or close. Your unconscious mind interprets harmony as a threat and will manufacture problems to restore emotional distance. You might pick fights about small issues, withdraw affection when your partner gets too comfortable, or sabotage special moments with criticism or moodiness. Rebels also tend to idealize past relationships that ended or fantasize about people they can't have because it's emotionally safer than fully investing in available love. The perfectionist shadow might be the cruelest of all the archetypes because it prevents you from ever experiencing satisfaction in love. If you have a perfectionist shadow, you set impossible standards that ensure no real human being can ever meet your expectations, which protects you from the vulnerability of genuine intimacy. Perfectionists are attracted to people who seem flawless from a distance. The successful, beautiful, or charismatic individuals who appear to have no obvious flaws. But as soon as these partners reveal their humanity through normal imperfections, mistakes, or needs, your shadow becomes disappointed and critical. You find yourself constantly editing your partner instead of accepting them. The perfectionist shadow develops when you learn that love was conditional on performance. Maybe you had parents who only showed approval when you achieved certain standards, or you experienced rejection that convinced you that you weren't good enough as you are. Your shadow decided that both you and your partners must be perfect to deserve love. If you're a perfectionist, you might be thinking that having high standards is actually healthy. But there's a crucial difference between discernment and perfectionism that most people don't understand. What I'm about to reveal will show you how your standards might actually be sabotaging your chance at deep, lasting love. The perfectionist shadow's secret fear is that if you accept someone's flaws, you'll have to accept your own. Your criticism of others is actually projected self-hatred. You reject in your partner what you can't forgive in yourself. This creates relationships where both people are performing instead of being authentic, which prevents real intimacy from developing. Perfectionists also tend to fall in love with potential rather than reality, constantly trying to mold their partners into idealized versions instead of loving who they actually are. Now that you understand your shadow archetype, let's talk about Jung's method for integration, the process of reclaiming these rejected parts of yourself so they stop controlling your relationships unconsciously. Shadow integration isn't about eliminating these patterns. It's about bringing them into conscious awareness where you can choose how to express them constructively. Jung's integration process begins with radical self-honesty. You must be willing to own the parts of yourself that you've been projecting onto others. If you're a victim, you need to acknowledge your hidden power and manipulation. If you're a rescuer, you must admit your need to feel superior. If you're a rebel, you have to face your fear of intimacy. If you're a perfectionist, you must confront your own imperfections. The next step is what Jung called active imagination, consciously dialoguing with your shadow. Instead of letting it operate unconsciously, you create a relationship with it. You might journal as your shadow, giving it a voice to express its fears and needs. You might visualize having conversations with this part of yourself, understanding its origins and motivations. Integration also requires embodying the opposite qualities in small, conscious ways. If you're a victim, practice taking responsibility for your choices. If you're a rescuer, practice receiving help from others. If you're a rebel, practice small acts of emotional vulnerability. If you're a perfectionist, practice accepting imperfection in yourself and others. The most crucial part of shadow work is developing what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposing forces within yourself without being torn apart by them. You learn to be both strong and vulnerable, independent and connected, accepting and discerning, helpful and boundaried. When you successfully integrate your shadow, your relationships transform in profound ways. Instead of unconsciously attracting people who embody your rejected qualities, you start magnetizing partners who are also doing their inner work. Instead of projecting your wounds onto others, you take responsibility for your own healing. Integrated. Shadows create what Jung called conscious relationships, partnerships where both people are aware of their psychological patterns and committed to growth. These relationships aren't perfect, but they're authentic. They're not drama-free, but the conflicts serve evolution rather than destruction. The victim who integrates their shadow stops attracting rescuers and perpetrators. They develop healthy boundaries, recognize their own power, and choose partners who respect their sovereignty. They transform their sensitivity into empathy and their survival skills into resilience. The rescuer who integrates their shadow learns to receive love and support from others. They stop enabling dysfunction and start encouraging genuine growth. They discover their worth beyond what they do for others and create relationships based on mutual respect rather than neediness. The rebel who integrates their shadow learns to maintain independence within intimacy. They stop creating artificial distance and start communicating their needs directly. They discover that true freedom comes from choosing vulnerability, not avoiding it. The perfectionist who integrates their shadow learns to love reality instead of fantasy. They develop compassion for human imperfection and create relationships based on acceptance rather than improvement projects. They discover that real love includes flaws, mistakes, and growth. Integration doesn't happen overnight, and it's not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of conscious awareness and choice that deepens over time. The journey of shadow integration is the most important work you'll ever do for your relationships. But it's also the most challenging because it requires you to face parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. Jung warned that most people would rather remain unconscious than do this difficult inner work, which is why the majority of relationships repeat the same dysfunctional patterns generation after generation. But you're different. You're here, you've listened this far, and you're ready to break the cycle. You understand that real love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about becoming a whole person who can love and be loved authentically. Remember, your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your ally that's been trying to get your attention. It contains not just your wounds, but also your untapped power, creativity, and potential for love. When you integrate these rejected parts of yourself, you don't just heal your relationships, you become more fully human. The path forward is clear. Identify your dominant shadow archetype. Begin the integration process through honest self-reflection and conscious practice. And be patient with yourself as you slowly transform unconscious patterns into conscious choices. Your relationships will never be the same. You'll stop attracting drama and start magnetizing depth. You'll stop trying to fix others and start healing yourself. You'll stop performing love and start being love. If this video has opened your eyes to the shadow patterns that have been controlling your love life, I want to help you go deeper. I've created a comprehensive guide called The Shadow That Destroys Your Relationships and How to Heal, that includes detailed assessments for each archetype, specific integration exercises, and a step-by-step roadmap for transforming your relationship patterns. The link is in the description and pinned comment below. Don't let another day pass living unconsciously. Your future relationships depend on the work you're willing to do today.